Hiya, 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 hiya. Joey Reynolds rap. Everybody on TV is black. I'm not on TV. I'm not black. I'm thinking of going on some sort of a tanning studio because I want to be black. I like the culture. Besides, I like having the jobs they handing out now. Well, it's inclusion, but I mean, come on. I want to work. And I think this is the way black people felt about us when we were reigning supreme over everybody and everything. And they said, oh, wait a minute, they don't give us a break. We're not in there. You got to be Lena Horne or Sidney Poitier for films. And for records, Charlie Pride, who is went both ways, in color, I mean. And then it finally changed. So now we're on equal footing, I hope, and everybody on TV who is black is very qualified. This is not a condemnation. It's just move out of the way for me too, because I'm about age. And I'm wearing my pink because this is Cancer Awareness Month for breast cancer. I have it in the family. I also want to mention that with the breast cancer, my nipples got hard the other day when I saw that Putin was losing. I love the fact that that those little guys in the Ukraine who have been fighting this war for a number of years, it's like we were in Vietnam. We weren't welcome. They threw us out. And finally we left. And on an embassy roof we left. Same thing's going to happen here with Russia. They're going to go home. Nobody's going to use the nuclear weapons because the guy is an egomaniac and he knows that if he blows himself up, then it's all over anyway. He ain't going to go to heaven. I don't think I'm going to make a judgment. I think he's going to go to hell. So there. And I think sometimes the way prices are here, I feel like we're in hell. What's going on with everybody raising all the prices on everything? What are we doing? Why is everybody nickel and diming, and dollaring? I had breakfast at the First Watch the other day with my friend Bob Fleischer, the artist, and it cost us $50 for pancakes with 2 eggs on top. They charged us for the syrup. They charged us for the coffee. And, it's a wonder they didn't charge us for the seat. It was like Spirit Airlines. But this is where we are right now as a society. That's how you have inflation. You have inflation because people are charged too much for everything. And George is going to slam on me and my comments. I'm going to be screened by Facebook for some of my comments. Hey, listen, people really think a lot of these things that I'm saying, and they don't want to talk about it. You got to talk about it. You think black people don't know what's going on with white people's discussions? You think we're going to talk like this, and they don't know what was? I mean, I grew up in a black neighborhood. I never grew up, but I was in a black neighborhood, and I didn't have the color difference until I realized that life's unfair, and life is unfair. What is it in the Road Less Traveled? The first paragraph, it says, life's unfair, so get over it. All right, the air conditioner started, so now we're going to get noise in the background. In the lovely Florida climate, we have air conditioning. That's why people can stand it here in August. The Joey Reynolds cheesecake box, okay? Now, if you notice, it has Pepsi on it in Times Square. And the famous astronaut, who was the Grand Marshal of the parade in Little Italy just recently. I gave him one of the cheesecakes. He loved the fact that the astronaut was on the box. Not thinking, well, that's Joey. It was long ago in a galaxy far away, before I even went to New York, and projected that I would be on NBC, and I got there. But this had Pepsi, and the other box that you're going to buy now when you buy the Joey Reynolds cheesecake has Coke. So I have a war. Now, the reason is because Coca-Cola at the airport when I came back at LaGuardia was $4.20 for a little bottle of Coke. And I think I told you, I drank half of it and brought it back to the dealer, and I said, hey, I only drank half of it, I want $2 back. But that's not the way the game is played. You can't return the unused portion. What was I going to say about Putin again? He's got all those oligarchs around, rich people who have their hands in the cookie jar. We've had a lot of that too in our government. People who have never let us do the things we need to do for each other because they are in the way with the profits. We have had that. We have to weed out the garden because there are a lot of people who still do that now. And many of them are in government. They're on top, and they still continue to take more than they can eat. but that's humanism. You know, you can't change 300 million people in an hour and a half. Uh, Try that one. That's this country. You know, we have 300 million people of all kinds from all over: black, white, short, tall, gay, straight. People who are interested in abortion, those who don't want abortion, those who don't need abortion, those who are afraid that they might need it. We're fear-based, you know, and the news perpetuates it. You know, the media is a feeding machine. It's a frenzy, so that we could sell stupid ads like Morgan and Morgan. The reason I bring that up is because we never were allowed to sell liquor on television because it was not a good thing to tell people to go out and drink. We were never allowed to sell marijuana. Now we call it CBDs, but you know, we weren't allowed to do that before. As a culture, we decided that we weren't going to have advertising of lawyers. You know, I mean, the $99 divorce is coming. The $40 funeral is here. But how come when you go to do it, it's $7,000? And why is it the lawyers make money on an accident they didn't have? All because they know how to file papers? You mean I spent all this money sending my kids to Wharton School and Harvard so they could learn how to file papers in a courtroom in a system that's really not in my interest? The scales of justice, you know, that scale, they got the one. Well, I'm a SAG-AFTRA member, so I don't work for scale. But you know, I think somewhere we need to sit down and duke this out. We gotta stop talking two languages. You know, we got both sides of our mouth. We used to say, you know, and we would find out that we're hypocrites. You know, you say one thing and do another. Tell your kids one thing, yet you act out and do something that they would never be allowed to do at any age, at any time in history. And we are hypocrites about it. We live in a double standard. We live in a country that doesn't want war, but we're always at war. We don't like nuclear weapons, but we have the most. I think we have the most of them. I don't know. All you need is one. You know, this is not Frito-Lay. I bet you can't eat just one. That was a good campaign for those ads. I should have put that on my cheesecake box. The guy who invented that was Casey, and he was I have to be careful with this because Alcoholics Anonymous is anonymous. What was his name? Clancy C. From LA, who just recently died. He's the one who wrote the campaign for Bet You Can't Eat Just One when he worked for Frito-Lay, which is owned by Pepsi-Cola. Speaking of Pepsi again. We're in a commercial world. And we are always approached by everybody with every inch of space is available, whether it's sound and sight, whether it's online, in the movie theaters now, where you used to have sanctuary from ads, and now they run ads in the theater. You used to have subscription radio and television, but now they run ads. They got ads too. We are just worshiping all the money. You know, kiss my ads. It's a world of money, and you know that. The money is supposed to represent work, but we're not a world of work to earn money. We're a world of investment to make money. So what we do is we take our money and we put it in other people doing the work. Hey, what an idea that was. That's how you wind up with China. You know, they were coolies. At one time, I remember there was a conversation between the finance minister of Japan, very successful Japan, but especially, as you know, through the automobiles. You certainly know Japan has been a prosperous, wonderful example of a good nation of people since the war. They have really shown to be first class, outperforming us in many ways. Anyhow, the finance minister of Japan was having a conversation on television. I saw this when it was worthwhile, when you could actually watch TV and not argue about politics. But the finance minister of Japan was talking to the finance minister of China. And the finance minister of China says, you have set a good example. You really have done very well. You know, at one time, China owned Japan. You know that, and that entire peninsula where North Korea is. That was, well, those are the days of Genghis Khan. But let's not go into the history of it. Let's say that Japan has done very well in modern times, and the Chinese were envious of it, and they want to know how to do it. This was years before we started to send all of our electronics over there. We have really screwed it up because most of our electronics was not made in China. Actually, it was made in a country that China wants to take over right now, as you probably know, Taiwan. So, That is not going to be like the Ukraine, that Ukraine-ese. This is Taiwanese. It ain't going to be that easy. All right, back to the story. So now the Japanese finance minister, talking to the Chinese minister, and the Chinese minister saying, "It's very admirable what you have done with your country and how you have made a great stage in the world and have done so well with economics and with world peace, etc." And so the finance minister said, "Yes, I won't take credit for any of that, but I will tell you that you will come along and do the same thing." At this point in time, the Chinese were making little umbrellas that went into drinks, if you recall, in the Polynesian restaurants, which was way out of character. But that's what that was about. That was about Chinese they were primitive. They didn't have all of the patents to everything that we loaned them. So I had a guy in the air on WOR when I was doing the network show, and he wrote a book. He was a Northwestern professor. It's probably still available. It's called China Inc. This is before we got into all of this stuff with the pandemic, and way before we had Apple over there and our, I would say, drive-through window stores, Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's franchise. We didn't have them at this time. And he wrote that China requires with their government for everyone who does business with them to give them the plans. They have to have the schematics to how something is produced before they allow you to come in and open a factory there. So that was the way the Chinese operated in their government, and we have gotten stuck with that because we've had to give them the plans on how we do everything. So they know how we do things, and they have modeled it, and now they're kind of like the Ming dog is kind of biting us in the ass. And so we have to take a little bit more of an American position, which is let's go back to work. Roll up your sleeves. Of course, I'm short sleeve now. And go back to work. We go back to work in this country, nobody's going to beat us because we're all countries. People from China want to be here, and so do people from Russia want to be here. All the enemies want to be here too. Not every one of them, but North Koreans, they don't want to sit there in a military uniform that was sewn by some prisoner. We don't want that as human beings. We want freedom. We all want freedom. Everybody wants it. Freedom from expression, freedom from family. You want freedom from self. That's a good one. Highlight that one, freedom from self. And as far as Putin is concerned, on my closing note here today, which is the last minute on 60 Minutes, how did they come up with that? They should have put me on there and replaced Andy Rooney. But let's not go there. And believe me, I'm not. But the Putin, closing comments on Putin, I will give you my slogan for Putin with all of his friends that surround him and all of these guys that don't tell him the truth and want to keep their jobs and keep their position and keep their lives. They don't want to tell him that he's losing the war and he's a bad guy and he ought to die. And you know what? They don't want to tell him that. So here's my saying. Don't pet a porcupine. It's a Reynolds wrap. Now, push that button and go away for a while.